You touch me with your cold shoulder. Whenever you look at me, I wish I was blind. You. Bum, 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 bum. Yo. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. Before we get started today, I want you to go down into the comments and do a little no phone dinner check-in. If last night you did the no phone dinner, which you should have, because what are you going to eat dinner and use your phone? That would be criminal. We need to give ourselves the time to sit and think and be some inquisitive individuals about the nuances of our own lives and minds. So, no phone dinner. If not last night, definitely tonight. But I'll be sure to remind you at the end of the episode too. So I wanted to talk about not going to college, which was my college experience. And I feel like college or university, depending on where you're at listening to this, is definitely a big topic for a lot of people, whether it's reflecting on their experience or looking forward to perhaps experience of maybe going to it. I have a lot to speak on in this realm because I have, again, the not going to college experience, and I guess reflecting back to when I was in high school and making the decision to not go to college, there was kind of, a crazy ride, I guess, of the experience of leaving high school and essentially having the responsibility of I now lead my own life kind of slapped on me in an instant. So I actually forgot to pull up my notes. No, I didn't. Here we go. We're already up. So I guess the biggest memory for me in that high school transition to not being in school anymore, period, was, 12th grade? Yeah, 12th grade English class. That was kind of where all the college logistics go down for everybody in my school. And people were signing up for the financial aid and looking into the classes that they want to take and setting schedules and all this kind of stuff. And I was just sitting there knowing that I didn't want to go to school, but kind of still bombarded by, I guess, the surrounding culture around going to college, doing the whole thing, preparing for it. And that was kind of the theme of senior year of high school. And like with many things in my life, I was not participating in that. I was just observing. I'm watching. I'm seeing people make these, which I now know as pretty fat decisions, just in English class in high school, as in the financial aid stuff. I didn't even really understand what it was even at that point. I'm going, are people just signing up for loans right now to go to school? The answer was yes. And I feel like that's just something that's so far looked over or kind of skimmed over. And then people look back on doing that and go, what the hell was I even thinking? And it's because, well, we're kind of led to do that. So you can't really hate on yourself if you did do that, or hate on yourself if you're in the process of doing that, because I mean, what the hell else are you supposed to do besides follow along with what the masses are doing? I would say a big experience of mine from day one of my life was to observe before just acting on anything. So I always kind of need a really strong reason why before I'm just going to jump into any decision really, but of course a big decision. So that was a really weird space to exist in during that transition, because what everyone else was going to was the next step. What I was going to was, well, I'm just going to be doing my own thing. At the time in senior year of high school, I had a nutrition bar company, so we were hand making energy bars in Raleigh, North Carolina. We had them in a handful of different stores, and that was kind of my passion project at the time. Anything I've ever gone into in a business sense, I'm all in at that given point. Obviously, starting that on an 18-year-old's budget, and I had no social media skill or presence at the time, so it wasn't the most marketing heavy and then successful business, but I learned so much from it because, again, I left high school and was immediately autonomous. I mean, I still lived at home and everything, so I guess I wasn't fully on my own, but in terms of where I want my life to go, that to-do list, that weight of responsibility was all on me, and there was nobody telling me, okay, well, here's what you have to accomplish this week. Because people think that getting work done is hard. Try creating the list of work that needs to be done and then doing it. because really my whole responsibility, my objective every single day was what opportunities can I create? Because I don't have any load of work just being served to me. I have to create this. So the biggest thing to kind of bring it back to this college, university focus, it's a priority thing. And this is under this umbrella of self-awareness, really. You have to know who you are before you're going to make the right decisions for yourself. And this is kind of what I conclude about everything, basically. What do you care about? What are your priorities? What are you actually trying to accomplish? And unfortunately, I feel like people's college experience or choice to have the college experience comes from someone else's motivation. Now, plenty of people are motivated to do that and to educate themselves in that kind of way. But most people, I think it really is just a strong obligation of, well, it's what you're supposed to do. So my thinking is how well can you familiarize yourself with what your priorities are? Do you want what the college experience has to offer? And I think that's everyone's responsibility to ask before going into that. But again, it's hard to say anyone is at fault, or if you make a decision that you didn't love or you spent years studying something that you don't use anymore, that it's a fault kind of thing, because of course we have a lot of external pressures. So again, the focus is, what do you care about? What do you care about? What do you care about? You have to spend time thinking about those things, or else if you're kind of mindless about the decisions you make, you're going to be led by other people who absolutely don't have your priorities or purpose in mind. Even if it's the same one, it's for them. So this speaks to a much more general message of know yourself. Self-awareness is such a big deal, so you can stick to those priorities. Now, I think a really big aspect of maybe choosing to not go to college or to not do the mainstream thing in any kind of sense, it's going to be the pit in your stomach kind of feeling. This is the common denominator feeling or emotion if you are going to make your own path. This was that 18 to 23 years old for me theme. It was the pit in my stomach. It was the deep breath diet. I'm still trying to figure out who the hell I heard that from, because that's one of the best sayings ever. I was on the deep breath diet because I was constantly having to just digest the feeling of everything is riding on me. Everything is my responsibility. I can't count on anybody else to tell me what to do. Here I am. So it was just this pit in my stomach kind of experience. And I think that's what people are really afraid of through not going to school. So going to college is kind of, okay, I'm made it to the end of high school. Now the real stuff happens. And then you go to college, because to not go to school, you would have to take that on. You would have to really sit there and go, holy shit, it's just me facing the world. And I think that's, I don't know, that might be too much for someone at 17, 18 making that decision. And I don't think that that's a concrete statement, I guess, about 17 and 18-year-olds in general, but it's more of within our society of, how we're generally raised, how we're generally directed. That's honestly kind of too much to take on. So again, it makes sense why people would be very drawn to do that, but if you don't, it's a huge pit in your stomach. It's a huge source of responsibility, decision-making, critical thinking, and that can be scary. So, well, not only scary, it can be kind of defeating at times, because if you're trying to make your own path but you don't have something to show for it, then you don't really feel too good about that. I remember kind of in, again, that 18 to 23 era for me. God, I must have been around 21 or 22 in this imagery that's kind of flowing through my mind right now. But I used to do DoorDash. I would deliver food all day long because I didn't want to go to school, but I knew that I needed to make money every day and still be saving up, and I wanted to buy my rental property and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, I would go do DoorDash and Uber Eats like I was struggling. I had no expenses basically, but I would do this constantly, Monday through Sunday, literally for years. But I lived right next to North Carolina State University, and that's where I would kind of DoorDash around and deliver. And at 21, 22 years old, which would be the dead center of kind of the college experience, if I chose to have that, I'm seeing everybody having that experience. I'm driving around in my car, picking up food and doing all this bullshit, and I'm seeing everybody out having fun, out at restaurants, big groups of friends, going to events. And I mean, this was kind of the peak of my little isolation era, not by specific choice of, I want to be alone by any means, but it was more, I have things that I'm trying to build. I have things and work within myself that I'm really trying to focus on, and this really does not mesh with most people. So I kind of found myself in that, but all I ever wanted was more people to feel the way that I felt about becoming better and thinking about the world, I guess. So I was really, really dead center of this feeling of loneliness at these times. Again, witnessing everybody having kind of the fruits of the college experience, which are very real, and I think that's kind of the social aspect, which I really did not have at the time. So I bring it back to this idea of the pit in the stomach, where I would be delivering stupid ass food. And even that was kind of a moral conflict. So I'm going, this is bullshit junk food that I'm driving around delivering to people. But it was a means to an end for sure. And I would have this food in my car. I'd be driving down the main freaking college street, seeing everyone doing their thing. And just these moments that I would have in that environment were so overwhelming to me, because it felt like I was some sort of movie character, not to over dramatize it, but it did feel kind of dramatic to me. And I knew that I was missing out on something for sure, which was that social aspect, other things that I did really long for. But I knew that what I wanted out of my life was not going to be found in that environment. And I knew that I had a path that was going to take longer than I really wanted it to, but I had a path kind of carved in that my future self was going to be proud of, that future self kind of being me right now. It's kind of crazy to even think back on these moments, but I mean, I would have so much anger and disappointment in these times because I felt like I had spent so much of my life working to be the best version of myself, working to keep this signal between current self and my super young self and the highest self as strong as possible, and knowing what I want, working on myself so much, the routines, just doing all I could, and there was nothing to show for it. I was driving DoorDash. You know what I mean? That is the worst shit ever for me at that point. I'm not trying to fully hate on DoorDash by any means, but I spent 3 years doing something that I knew was almost opposite of what I wanted my life to look like, after I had already spent years and years and years doing the deep self-work. And again, I had nothing to show for it. So I'm sitting there wanting to just break my steering wheel off the frickin' whatever, because I was so dissatisfied with where I was. And this is the pit in the stomach. The people who take the path of working on the real things, the real value, building real character, that's the feeling that you get used to. Because if you're just a business person, you can get pretty strong metrics to support kind of a proof of concept. Just go make a bunch of money, and then there you go. But becoming very proud of who you are, having internal peace, is about 1,000,000 times harder than making a bunch of money. People look at rich people as God. That is the stupidest shit ever, because you can cheat your way to making money. You cannot cheat your way to discipline, self-love, internal peace. That cannot be cheated. So it takes a really, really intentional individual to stick to the path of building real character within yourself. Because again, all it consists of is this pit in your stomach, deep breath diet. Oh my God, I've got to stick to this. Nothing to show for it, but I've got to stick to this. So again, I don't want to over dramatize, but when I look back on those times, it is kind of dramatic, because it was my whole life. Every day that I was doing anything, it was a reflection of my entire life story, my entire purpose. And I've always just wanted that to play out in the way that it's playing out now. And of course, right now, it's kind of just a moment of gratitude for that. But again, bringing it back to kind of the main objective, the choice to not go to school, I mean, it is not an easy one. And I think people just witness someone that does social media and kind of does their own thing, and they're an entrepreneur and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of, oh, sick, that's awesome. But the point of point A to point B, as in the journey of actually getting there, is not super fun. And I think things like the lonely chapter and all that kind of stuff is glorified in some sort of way. So people see that, they see Gary Vee or something going, yeah, I didn't have friends ever. And you go, dude, hell yeah, that's me. I'm going to be the entrepreneur that misses out on everything and then makes it to this sick ass point where everyone loves me and I'm making millions of dollars. I mean, yeah, but it doesn't actually feel cool when you're not hanging out with your friends. It doesn't feel cool when you're door dashing just to make $100 a day or whatever, and you want to just flip your car off the side of the road because you're sick of hearing that stupid thing ding 100 times. None of that is cool. So there is a really distinct choice to make. Again, this all comes back to self-awareness. I knew that the culture and just the lifestyle of the college experience was not going to be it. And college is not a bad thing inherently. It would have been a pretty bad thing for me because I knew myself too much, and I've always known myself too much for the environment that I was in up until literally now. So being super young, growing up in school, I knew myself too well to productively exist in that environment, because school is not cut out for somebody who knows exactly who they are and exactly what they want. The leverage of school is to lead people who don't think at all, to be honest. So to touch on what I think college really is, finding a job. Seriously, that's what I think it is. It's finding a job, but not necessarily yourself. Whereas it's marketed as finding yourself, which could be true. You will be in a very dense population of people around your same age trying to figure out the same big questions of their life. But college is, I mean, it is so compelling in the sense that you have thousands and thousands of other people in your same kind of life category, demographic, kind of pulling you in different directions. But it seems like most people are never really steering the ship themselves. The real outcome of college is to get a degree and find a job. And I almost want to say that's the opposite of finding yourself, because it's spending 4 years from 18 to 22. I mean, really think about that. 18 to 22, figuring out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Are we for real? That is insane. I mean, even me saying that out loud, it sounds a little bit more insane than when I wrote it down on my freaking notes. That is criminal. To carve out one lane that you have to stick in for the rest of your life, or you're in trouble. So you spend the 4 years becoming qualified for whatever the heck job, and then you stay in that job, and if you decide that that job is not truly reflective of who you are as a person and what your real purpose is, which, guess what, that's probably going to be the case about 99% of the time, then you're in trouble. And you've got a real big problem, which is finding another job. And so there's this fear element to it where people think, oh my God, if I don't figure everything out right now and I don't find the perfect job and then the money, everything is just a money conversation. How can I make the right amount of money that I'm looking for to support everything outside of the job that I'm going to get and probably not like? I mean, it's a crazy cycle. And again, it always comes back to, it doesn't matter what practical path you're on. If you're in college, that is cool. If you're not in college, that is cool. Both examples have a wild responsibility to think about, what do I care about? What are my real priorities in life? Because college is not going to fix it for you. Job is not going to fix it for you. Not going to college is not going to fix it for you. Just doing whatever the hell you want all of the time, probably not going to fix it for you. So there is real work to being a person. There's real emotional management to being a human. And of course, in today's world and forever ago's world, there is practical management too. So the money thing is very important. But if we're using college to quote unquote find ourselves, and then we find out that finding ourselves is really just finding a job and then you better stay there, that really devalues an individual. That really devalues the human experience to think that a 4-year span of solidifying a job is the definition of a person. I don't like that very much. Now, this is kind of the thing that you hear all the time. For certain jobs, college is necessary. Of course, being a lawyer, doctor, etc., there are certain occupations out there where there's a damn curriculum. You have to know some information. You have to be actually educated and trained on a certain set of information so that you can carry out the job productively. I'm not overlooking that at all. I'm not unreasonable. I'm not just the complete anti-college, anti-9-to-5, anti-just kind of normal life. But I am anti just mindless decision making because that leads to a world of pain. So if it's necessary for the job, then I think it's super valuable, super perfect. Where I see college become a downfall, aside from what I just described, it can serve as a freaking awesome distraction because we grow up going to school. So what's more school? For the average person, that would be kind of a comfort zone thing. Okay, well, 4 years of college. I'm 18, about to leave high school, or 17, about to leave high school, whatever. I'm really nervous about what the real world has to offer. However, I can actually spend the next 4 years in what seems to be kind of the next level of responsibility. Not really, though, because from what I've heard from nearly everybody, they say colleges, they're not going to coddle you and do all this stuff. Yeah, they are. Teachers are kind of doing the same exact thing. And so it's a nice little bubble to exist in that also feels like I'm doing something. Because when a teacher hands you 5 assignments to do by the end of the week, and then the next teacher does the same thing, and you got 20 things on your to-do list, and you have the clubs that you're going to and whatnot, you feel busy as hell. And you have a to-do list, and you feel very productive. And that's all very true within that bubble. Now, one of my favorite things to ask people who are in college is, all right, take away all of your responsibilities that have to do with your parents telling you to do it, your teachers telling you to do it, anybody else telling you to do it. What is your personal to-do list looking like? And most people don't really have a personal to-do list. It might be 1 or 2 things, scroll TikTok, scroll Instagram, you know what I mean? Because their to-do list is being created by another person. So a big emphasis there is you should have certain things you're working towards and doing and you have on that to-do list that actually pertain to your own self-development. And that should be coming from you, the authority, not teacher or parents, the authority. But anyways, the way that it can be such a big distraction is because it's a safety net. You go through these 4 years of college and then, you kind of probably still feel like a kid by that point. I still feel like a kid right now. And then you have to jump into the real world. Nah. Let's go to grad school. And then grad school is another couple of years. And then you get to the end of that. let me go to the next level for a doctorate or whatever. I don't know. This is where I become stupid because I don't actually know everything about the school experience, obviously. But it can serve as a pretty damn good distraction because it's a bubble that does involve being productive and getting a bunch of stuff done. But then when it comes to really, 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 really being an individual out there in the world, now you're on your own. I mean, I feel like it's better to bite the bullet on that as soon as possible because you get used to it. At 18, I spent 4 years building that. I'm good. I know how to exist in this world, not on my own, friggin' lone wolf kind of thing, but just I've built that autonomy. I have the skill set to kind of exist in the world. And then people graduating college would kind of run into the same things. And then I would go, yeah, I know, right? Because I had already done that for many, many years. Just in conversations with friends and stuff, these things would come up. And it's a big eye-opener, I guess, to leave that system, leave that bubble. So the longer that some people stay in there, the more that they feel safe, because it's a nice distraction from that leap, that eye opener. So the thing that you're supposed to do in college, well, there's a lot of things you're supposed to do in college, I suppose, but the main thing that's kind of marketed is exploring ideas. And I think exploring ideas is very much about facing ideas that you don't agree with, learning how to argue and debate and present better ideas to ideas that you think are bad ideas, and just actually explore. And I feel like, unfortunately, it's not really an exploration of ideas in a lot of ways now. It's more of a certain subset of ideas being shoved down your throat, and then you're the bad guy if you don't agree with them. So yeah, I don't like the lack of freedom of thinking. It's kind of been boxed in recent years, especially from what I've heard. I definitely think there's going to be kind of a paradigm shift there, because people are only going to put up with bullshit for so long. But yeah, I think the true exploration of ideas is kind of the strongest thing that you can take on. It's incredibly valuable. And you can tell that somebody is absolutely not confident in what they think or know because they're afraid to actually put those ideas to the test. People that just don't want to have the debate. They don't want to engage in the conversation. They want to just hide behind kind of a virtue signal, but a baseless argument. And I think that that's quite bullshit. So if there are bad ideas out there in the world, I don't believe that the approach should be shutting those ideas down, except through better ideas. So of course it's kind of the cancel culture. You can't say this, banning speech. I mean, I think people should be able to say whatever the hell they want, and they can bear the social consequences that comes along with that until it becomes a threatening kind of thing. And then, of course, that's a different conversation. But yeah, it's a little bit disheartening, I guess, to see the organizations that nearly every person goes through at the early stage of their 20s have these kind of restrictions on actual thinking and exploration. So should be the exploration, but I don't know how much that really is true. Obviously, I'm speaking just from what I've heard and what I've seen on a large scale. I did not go to college, so I guess I wouldn't have the perfect perspective there. Some things to take away from this, though. If you went to college and you feel like it was a waste because maybe there are some folks getting ready to go to college, but I'm sure a lot of you have already gone, or maybe you chose not to. But if you went and feel like it's a waste, you can't think that way. Again, I've said a bunch of not so encouraging things, I guess, about college and what that experience can offer. But you cannot look at the last 4 years, or not the last 4 years, but the 4 years that you went to school as a waste. You did not waste 4 years because you spent 4 years learning. You met people. You achieved new things. You had obstacles that held you back, and surely you overcame them. So it absolutely is not a waste. I really don't like any situation that creates that kind of thinking for people, but I think it's one of those things where you have to redirect. You can't go, gosh, I wasted all those years and now blank, because it's kind of a victim mentality to your own attempt at doing what you knew was the right thing at the time, or what you thought was the right thing at the time. So don't look poorly upon 4 years of life. You say, oh, well, maybe I didn't use all of the things. But again, there's a lot of stuff that I did learn, and I can't look at that as a complete waste. I think we can always look back and be grateful for the things that we went through, even if we say, oh, I could have done this better. I could have spent my time in a much more valuable way, but you can't go back. So what would be the point of going too far down that rabbit hole? I had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of years ago, and he had just graduated college, was thinking about going into grad school. And of course I said, look, I'm kind of biased in this because I'm not the school guy, but I'll try to be as fair as possible here in saying that if you don't go to grad school, surely some things are going to happen that you'll be really happy they did. You'll have some opportunities and they'll be really dope, and life will be cool. And you're going to go, man, I'm so glad I didn't go to grad school. And the exact same thing on the other side of the coin. If you go to grad school, you're going to meet some people that you're glad you did. You're going to achieve some things that you're glad you did, and life will be cool. And you'll say, man, I'm so glad I went to grad school. Forward looking, you have to understand that great things are going to happen if you're just trying to make your life better. And that's going to happen no matter what choice you make. And the cool thing is, you don't know what would have happened if you did the other thing. So you could think, oh man, if I didn't go to school, X, Y, and Z would have happened. Well, you don't actually know that. You only have the data that you have created in your own life. And so again, there's no point to go down the rabbit hole of, man, I should have done X, Y, and Z. And actually you can look forward and say, here's what I'm going to do now. If I feel like the way the world directed me for 4 years after my 17th or 18th birthday was not ideal, well, then I can recognize that maybe being that of the world is not really the best. Maybe I should, again, refocus on my own priorities and make decisions from that. Might be a strong approach. Now, if you're considering going to school and you're pre that age or pre that 4 years, don't box your actual self into the major and all of the stuff around school and the experience. You can't box you in, because again, the 4 years is directing you towards a job. The job cannot be defining of you as a person. That's a literal crime. We are too complex for a job to define that, if that makes sense. But I think you should really emphasize strongly the social experience of college. And this was a big con of my path, is that I didn't have just 1,000 people my same age placed right in front of me in 20 different situations that I could become friends with and build connections with. I had to really search for friends and connections, because I didn't want to exist in that whole experience. So I didn't get the pretty strong upside, which is that social element. So I actually found kind of this loophole to get a gym membership at the NC State gym. And that's where I met kind of 99% of my friends that I have now, aside from after moving to Austin here. But yeah, I mean, I went to the gym there, met a ton of people, made a bunch of great connections and friendships, but I was always kind of the odd one out, if people knew that, because it was kind of why does he go to the gym here? He's 22 or something, but not in school, kind of a weird thing. But yeah, I did what I could with what I had. I think that's the saying. But yeah, if you're going into school, sure, study the stuff, do well, participate, get a great job at the end of the 4 years. But you can't box yourself into that, and you need to emphasize building real connections as much as you possibly can, because that is incredibly valuable. And I can easily admit that that was a downside of the path that I chose. I did not get that strong of an opportunity. So if you're going in that direction, take that opportunity. Now, there's such a money focus when it comes to the college, the job, what direction you're going to go in. You got to understand that making money is easy. And I will explain this a little further. Making money is easy just on the basis of making money. Making money through being very proud of yourself, through a purposeful pursuit in your life, very hard. Very different story. So don't stress about money. And I won't prescribe stress here, but I'm going to say focus on the other part of it that I just explained, which is being proud of yourself, having a life that you're actually fulfilled by, acting on your purpose, what you feel like is most important to you. Really work on that. And I don't want to say the whole, the money will come. I mean, you got to get it. You know what I mean? Get your money up. But you can't do that through the lens of thinking that money is the thing. Money's an amplifier. Money is kind of a secondary. But gosh, it always comes down to, what do you care about? I wish that's what was taught. Not just in college, but since day one of our lives. What do you care about? What do you find interesting? What are your priorities? Let's build a life. Let's build education. Let's build these kind of paths based on that, instead of, hey, what does everyone else care about? And you just kind of latch on to that path, because honestly, you know who's doing that? Everybody. And so then you ask, well, who is actually acting on their purpose? And that's a damn good question. It's probably the people that think for themselves and bear this kind of tough path of the pit in your stomach thing. And the world does not set us up for an easy route in that direction. So in college or not, what do you care about? Because that's a freaking really big deal. To wrap things up, if you're watching this on YouTube, I would love if you click the little subscribe button so you don't miss next week's podcast episode. If you liked the video, you should like the video. That'd be cool. And I love to hear from you guys. Trying to work on being faster with responding to comments, but I see them, and I really do love to see them so much. So if you have any questions, anything you want me to talk about in future episodes, anything you think, even got some hate in the direction of what I said, leave it in the comments. It can't be worse than what I've already seen, so let it rip. But no, for real, always appreciate hearing from you guys. And again, the No Phone Dinner, make sure to check in if you didn't at the beginning in the comments. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, you can comment on there too. Would love to hear it just as much. And you can give me a 5-star rating on the show. How cool would that be? Would love it. What else we got here? Oh, my newsletter. I write 2 newsletters every single week, and as deep as I dive in these podcasts, I try and do the very same thing with the newsletters that I write. It's just a little bit of a different format. You don't need to hear me yap. You can just read it on a screen, make it your screensaver, send it to somebody else, copy the text, I don't know, tattoo it on your arm, whatever you got to do. But I send those out twice a week. It's completely free. The link to sign up for that will be in the description and show notes of the episode. And last but not least, 3 words or 4, depending on how I'm feeling: no phone dinner, or no phone freaking dinner. 3 or 4 words that are very important. So when you're eating dinner tonight, or if you've already eaten dinner or are eating dinner right now listening to this, shame on you, by the way. Can't be doing that, but I'll let it slide. You're going to put your phone away when you're eating your meal. You're going to put the computer away. There's going to be no TV going on. You're either going to be with your family, your friends, or all by your freaking self. They're all really good options, actually. And you're going to take in the present moment. You're going to bring your awareness down to the level of humanity. You're going to look at the wall and the ceiling fan spinning, and you're going to hear the noise of the air conditioning, or maybe you're outside and you hear the birds chirping. Whatever it might be, take it in. There is so much to learn from the nuance of the environment you live in without all of the noise. Last night I was going to watch, it's the prequel to the Hunger Games. Been on this Hunger Games stretch for damn 5 weeks at this point, just trying to finish the whole thing with my girlfriend Sammy. So we're going to watch the prequel last night. We were kind of running out of time. I said, hey, I got dinner. Can't be watching anything. So, we make the sacrifices necessary to remain human beings. And I think it's an important thing to do. And if you're interested in adding a little extra spice to your no phone dinner experience here, I have the no phone dinner challenge. The link to that will also be in the show notes or description of the episode, where it's $1 to sign up. There's a chat where you can talk with me and all of the other people in the group about your no phone dinner experience. You can keep track of how many days in a row you've been doing it. It's through the Promise app, which I kind of think of as the Strava for habit tracking instead of tracking runs. So sticking to the promises that you make, it's kind of a huge message of mine, because I think keeping promises is the ultimate way to build self-respect, self-love, confidence, etc. So you can sign up for that in the link in the description or show notes. And that's all I got, folks. I really hope you enjoyed this college-related rant. I really had fun kind of talking through this, because it's something I haven't thought about in depth in actually quite some time. So again, I know I kind of went down some maybe not as positive rabbit holes as other topics, because it's just kind of my honest perspective on it. But I really hope that you can see the positive in that you can make your own decisions. You can see the positive in that there's no need to be regretful about having gone to college, and you don't actually have to be totally afraid about going to college, if you will, because there are so many great opportunities to have in any of these categories and situations that I've mentioned. So this was fun, and I can't wait to see you next week. Have a great day. Bye.